House has just voted in approval of the $2,000 stimulus checks. I want to say the vast, besides 2 or 3 Democrats in the House, so the Democrats alone could have gotten the authorization for that. The Democrats are in unity on $2,000 stimulus checks. But the vast majority of Republicans, with probably 20 to 10% voting in favor, but the vast majority of Republicans in the House voted against it. So these are the votes we have on record. And so, with these votes, don't let anybody tell you otherwise. The Democrats are the party of $2,000 stimulus checks. The Republicans are the party against $2,000 stimulus checks. For everybody at home who can't find work right now, for everybody who's unemployed, for everybody who had to deal with the 5 weeks Trump delayed the vote and got knocked off of unemployment, for everybody who has to deal with not having enough food on the table, for everybody who just can't make ends meet, for everybody on the verge of eviction or already having been evicted, here is the parties. The Democratic Party is the party of $2,000 stimulus checks and using the president's words against his own party. And the Republican Party is the party of rejecting the president's suggestion, even though the president's suggestion was not just about the $2,000 stimulus checks, but also about gutting other extremely important parts of the bill. The Republican Party is against the stimulus checks. And there's no debate here. There's no question. The votes are on the record. The Democrats are in favor of the $2,000 stimulus checks. The Republican Party is against it. And before it goes to the Senate, where it's going to face an extremely difficult battle, we already have the votes are clear. The votes are in. Lindsey Graham not bringing it to the floor doesn't stop his party from being recognized for what it is. An anti-working class party. A party that is denying the tax money that Americans pay in every year from being returned to them in this time of crisis. That is what's going on right now. That is what's going on. It is no debate. Now people will say, well, you know what, Dylan? Because this is the thing. This is the thing. And Tabby Egg, thank you so much for the sub. And thank you earlier, the other individual, Raven, for the sub. I appreciate it. But I'm on a roll right now. This is the thing. You'll see so many people say the Republicans torpedoed the bill with the higher stimulus. No, it was actually the Democrats. Nancy Pelosi and their ghouls did this. They did this. They did that. They did this. They did that. And the back and forth online about different meetings and who torpedoed what, or oh look, Nancy Pelosi said this was a significant amount, even though if you look at the full context of it, she was talking about how she wished it was bigger, but let's just get something on the table of Americans. But this completely solidifies eliminates all doubt. At the end of the day, when Republican representatives, besides the select few who did break from the party, which I will praise them endlessly for breaking from the party on this, the Republican Party...
Boy meets Mini $20. Make Georgia Pog champ.
Hey, Boy Meets Mini, thank you so much for the 20 buckos, and I will do my best to flip Georgia blue while I am there. Thank you so much, buddy. At the end of the day, when the rubber hit the road, the Republicans voted against the $2,000 increase, and the Democrats voted for it. Now, everybody knows I have criticisms of the Democratic Party. Everybody knows I have problems with the Democratic Party and how things are running. But at the end of the day, when the rubber hit the road, they were the people who actually voted for this bill, not the people who voted against it en masse. When child hunger is spiking in this country, when evictions are meeting a precipice before a wave of evictions is going to happen over this country, as families are put on the street homeless, as more and more people are laid off while Trump's out playing golf, while people are being knocked off of unemployment because he's delaying it. The thing is, if he just plays golf, period, I don't have a problem with it. I know there's this huge moral debate about golf. I am not involved in that. I have no opinion on that because I'm just not knowledgeable on that. So at this point in time, I don't care if he plays golf. But for him to have the gall to play golf while he is the individual blocking and stopping unemployment from being extended for a whole week, that is insane to me. That is an insult to everyone who is just trying to make ends meet during this. But you know what? It's not a surprise that the person who had a silver, gold, whatever spoon in his mouth since he grown up with a small loan of $1 million would not really realize how much that week will affect people being knocked off of unemployment. How their lives being completely thrown up in the air. They don't know if they're going to be able to keep their home. They don't know if they're going to be able to feed their children. They don't know if they're going to be able to get the medicine they need, how they're going to pay for insulin. Imagine everybody who was already rationing insulin before this crisis, how they've been affected by the loss of their job and the inability for the government to throw another check at them.
A curd is a curd.
B0JJY $20. Be safe, please, Dill.
Thank you so much, Boyge. Thank you so much. Man, a lot of donations today. I really appreciate it. I just opened it up. So what I'm basically getting at here is while the Republican president, Donald Trump, is whining about basically non-existent election fraud overall, no more than any other previous election, the elections he won in, by the way, one of them. While the president's playing golf, Americans were being kicked off of unemployment. While he was playing golf, the vast majority of the Republican Party voted against a higher stimulus bill to people who are losing their homes, people who can't feed their kids, people who are losing their insurance, people who are not able to make ends meet when it comes to their medicine, when it comes to insulin, when it comes to the basic needs, their utilities through the winter. Imagine Christmas season, you're coming in, it's a cold winter up here in Maryland, I'll tell you that, and you get kicked out of your home while the president's playing golf and delays the renewal of unemployment benefits for Americans for a whole week before following up that amazing field goal with his party trying to block this. Not to mention, it's not the first they denied unanimous consent because the Democrats are trying to get this bill through Congress as fast as possible, but then the vast majority of them vote against this bill at the same time during the same propaganda push that Fox News, OAN, and all of these far-right lunatic publications were pushing the narrative that it was Nancy Pelosi blocking this. That look at us, me and Rose Twitter. We're gonna point at her saying this was a significant thing. See, the 600 was significant. That was her. See that $600? That's all she wanted. Even though she would state previously, unless you deceptively cut it out, that $600 was not what she wanted. She wanted more. But when the opportunity came for $2,000. They put this together as fast as possible, tried to push it through, and it was the Republicans that was in the way. And nobody can erase this history. The votes will be available to the public in 24 hours for every single legislature that voted for and against this. Not to mention the fact that it wasn't a lot of Democrats. It was like 3 or 4 Democrats that ended up voting against this, which is actually significant when we have an 8-vote majority now coming in the next cycle. Every single one of them should be shamed to high heaven. Shamed and primaried. Unless it is literally a district where no other Democrat could possibly win, every single one of them should be shamed, primary, and have resources strangled from them. Every single one of them. Absolutely disgusting. But thankfully, as a Democrat, I only have to point to 3 or 4 and not over 100 Republican legislators who voted against this lifeline to working families. Now, I've just been ranting at the moment. I've just been an angry boy. So let's actually read the article. Maybe I should read the article before I continue to just yell. Oof. How you all doing? You all doing well? We all having a good day? I'm not chipper today, eh? Okay. The Democratic-controlled House of Representatives passed a bill Monday evening to increase direct coronavirus relief payments to some 2,000 people, $2,000. Though the measures faces an uphill battle in the Republican-run Senate, despite support from President Donald Trump. This right here is semi-accurate. He did say he supported $2,000 direct payments, which is what helped the Democrats organize around this moment by using his own words against him and his own party. But he also talked about cutting extremely important parts of the stimulus bill. in trading for that $2,000. The Democrats want to keep those important parts of the stimulus bill and also pass the $2,000. They want a large stimulus because, you know, he led us into a recession while the Democrats are trying to pull us out of it. And the $2,000 on top of that, of course, to help families directly. The bill would increase to $600 in direct payments to those who earned less than $75,000 a year last year to $2,000. Because the bill was brought up in an expedited procedure, it required 2/3 majority to pass. And you want to know the funny thing about this? It's great that it was 2/3 majority, by the way. It's going to make it more difficult for Mitch McConnell going forward. But a lot of people are coming out, and these are Marco Rubio's, just these, or these like old, decrepit Republican senators or congressmen who are way past their time and way out of date, way out of touch with working class Americans. They'll come out and say, well, look, we don't need to send $2,000. We don't need to send $2,000 to these rich city kids and whatever, right? These ideas that we send $2,000 to millionaires and billionaires, which the vast majority would not be going to them, even if we did include them. But it says right here, clear as day, the bill would increase the $600 direct payments to those who earned less than $75,000 a year, otherwise known as working class Americans, to $2,000 a year. The most affected by your economic recession would be the people getting this money. Marco Rubio is cringe whenever he speaks. Man, all you need to see is recent comments about vaccines while he was getting the vaccines. Dr. Fauci was a liar, and somehow that guy gets a vaccine before teachers when we're all reopening schools and healthcare workers. Somehow he gets it first. Bizarre to me. Trump insisted on increasing the payments after his administration struck a deal for the $600 checks as part of a coronavirus relief and government spending package, which passed both chambers of Congress last week and which his administration helped to negotiate. I simply want to get our great people $2,000 rather than the measly $600 that is now in the bill. The thing that's so funny about this is his administration negotiates it down with the Republicans. Then it gets through, he says this, and I guess he thought, well, they're not going to spend the time to actually like recraft a bill around $2,000. We just went through all these negotiations. And the Democrats were like, sure, we'll do it. And they did it anyway. That's exactly the type of action, exactly the type of energy I want to see from the Democratic Party. If the Republicans make it seem like, whoa, you're totally in favor of this, or even just their president, not even their party, the Democrats are like, okay, cool. There's a bill on the floor. Dylan, I will never support this because I make more than $75K and I'm still employed. Screw all those other people. It's all about me. Well, don't worry. I'm sure if all those people under $75,000 were unable to buy products or purchase services or, pay for their home or any of that, that the economy certainly wouldn't collapse and you would also be under threat of losing employment for whatever industry you work in. So, it all works out. It all works out, buddy. Trump cited the scheduled House vote in a statement Sunday, announcing that he had finally signed a $2.3 trillion COVID-19 relief and government funding package. By the way, he delayed it for a week, and because of that week delay, a ton of people were kicked out of unemployment for a whole week. Just want to throw that out there, due to him delaying while playing golf. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer told reporters on Monday ahead of the vote that he would try to pass the bill by unanimous consent on Tuesday, a procedure that would allow the bill to advance only if there's no objections. This right here failed. It failed. I had an article here about it, but it's been changed, I think. But it failed. Why did it fail? Because Republicans stopped it. Again, another bookmark in history, making it very clear that it was the Republican Party that didn't want you sitting right in your chair at home, possibly on unemployment, possibly close to losing your home, coming harder and harder every day to just pay for your kids' food. Becoming harder and harder every day for you to pay for medicine, insulin, getting price gouged at insulin, all these difficult problems you face, fuel for your car, utilities. It was the Republican Party which stood in the way and said, fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck your medicine. Fuck your rent. Fuck everything that you are trying to make buy on. You're not getting $2,000. Here's the $600 that we delayed for a week while you were all getting kicked off of unemployment, and be happy. The president tries to put a little ego run into it about the $2,000, and it was the Democrats who did everything to push this through and got it through. And now it's going to Mitch McConnell's graveyard to be gutted by that ghoul. Every Senate Democrat is for it, but unfortunately, we don't have the Republicans on board. These Senate Republicans have followed you through thick and thin. Get them now to act and support the $2,000 check. Now, the thing is, you know what? Trump has a lot of weight in the Republican Party. He does. He does. Him condemning a senator or condemning a Republican has their polling crash. The governor of Georgia's polling data has gone down and plummeted since Trump has railed into him after, he lost Georgia fairly in an election and whined about imaginary huge amounts of election fraud. He has a lot of power with his voice. Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, both without his support, would most certainly lose the election. And it's down to the wire even with his support. But at the end of the day, these Senate Republicans know that currently, unless there's a change in Georgia and we win, which we're working hard, I'm going down to Georgia to make sure that it's a canvas for Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff, because I want them to flip those Georgia Senate seats blue so we have the majority needed to get our legislation through. But they know that Trump in a month will no longer be in office. Mitch McConnell will. And he is a cutthroat politician who will tank them if necessary to get his legislation through and to block whatever he wants to block. And they know while Trump has a lot of weight with his words, Mitch McConnell will still be their Senate Majority Leader. He'll still have his cutthroat tactics, and he'll still have his immense amount of political capital. Political capital he is perfectly willing to crack down on the Republicans. And so, even though there's no way any of them voting against this or talking about how they're not for the $2,000 stimulus is going to make them look good, even more so after Donald Trump's disingenuous comments, even though that's going to do damage to them, I think ultimately the vast majority of them, I think all of them are going to do the political calculus in their head that, man, we got to vote against this, because if I don't, we're screwed. It also helps that it's right after the election, so people like Susan Collins can vote against this and hope that people forget by the next time she runs for re-election. The $600 payments are still expected to be made as early as the end of this week, despite Trump's delay. A senior Treasury Department official told NBC News checks might clear the following Monday due to the federal and bank holiday on Friday. If Congress passes $2,000 stimulus checks, Americans who have already received the original $600 will receive a second deposit of $1,400 to bring them to $2,000 total. Wonderful. They've thought it all through. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell praised Trump for signing the bill on Sunday night, but made no mention of a possible vote on the additional relief in his statement. Of course. Because he wants to just pretend this isn't happening, because this is terrible for him. This is terrible for the Republicans. This makes them look like garbage. Absolute garbage. Roy Blunt of Missouri, chairman of the Senate Republican Policy Committee, told reporters last week that even if the measure came up for a vote in the Senate, it would not reach the 60-vote threshold needed for passage. But at least one Senate Republican, Marco Rubio, indicated he would support the additional payments. One. We got one. And remember, we still don't have, even one isn't enough, obviously, and we're not going to get to the 60-vote threshold. So, if anything, what this bill is ultimately going to do, because we were able to get the 60-vote threshold because there was enough Republicans with a heart on this issue, or who were just scared of public pressure. Ultimately, what this does is officially in the history books writes down that when Americans were getting kicked out of their homes, when they were losing their jobs, couldn't feed their kids, couldn't pay utilities, couldn't pay for gas money, that the Republican parties did everything in its power to block a stimulus that got them the money they needed to make ends meet. Simple as that.
A curd is a curd.
Hey, Haunted, thank you so much for the sub at tier 1, buddy. I appreciate that. Susan Collins has always banked on her constituents for getting her comments and decisions. Of course she has. The thing is, she's a Republican in a blue state. And as somebody who is in a blue state with a Republican governor, their re-election depends on the people either being not knowing about the backroom shady deals they make, not knowing who they get their money from, not knowing their past comments, and not knowing what they voted for, vetoed, or did everything possible to undermine. When it comes to my own governor, Larry Hogan, most Marylanders would probably be pretty suspect if they knew that he took money from the toll road industry before proposing massive toll road expansion instead of massive transit expansion. They'd probably be pretty sus if they read his comments about police violence victims in his books. They'd be pretty sus if they heard about his mandatory minimum policies. They'd be pretty sus if they looked at all the legislation he vetoed, including a $15 minimum wage. But his re-election and his purple wave policies, purple wave victories, all depend on people being ignorant of their actions. See, a good politician, the more you learn about them, the more you should be encouraged to donate to their campaign, vote for them, and support them. A bad politician, a tactical one, but a bad one, is somebody who does everything possible to make you learn little details about their personality or their backstory, but learn nothing about their voting record, know nothing about their past comments, or know nothing about what they're really doing or taking money from. Larry Hogan is a perfect example of that. I share many of my colleagues' concerns about the long-term effects of additional spending, but we cannot ignore the fact that millions of working class he's just playing to the crowd. Working class families across the nation are still in dire need of relief. Happy that he's voting for it, but ultimately it's meaningless. In a statement on Sunday night, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi from California urged the president to immediately call on congressional Republicans to end their obstruction to join him and Democrats in support of her standalone legislation to increase direct payment checks to $2,000. And let's all back up for a second, right? While everybody was like clapping for Trump when he said this, even though they all ignored about all the stuff he would want to be gutted from legislation, from the stimulus, in order to trade for that $2,000. Let's ignore that for a second. If Trump really wanted this and wasn't just doing this to play to the crowd, not thinking that this would actually go down, what's now going down, why isn't he right now doing everything to put pressure on Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, and every Republican saying, you know what, if you don't vote for this, maybe I won't campaign for you. Maybe I won't fundraise for you. Maybe, in fact, I'll campaign against you. Maybe I'll support your primary opponent. You know how much weight I have in the party. You know how much the party generally likes me and the base likes me. He could do this right now if he genuinely cared. But while this was all going on, he was playing golf. And while he was playing golf, millions upon millions of Americans were getting kicked off unemployment for a week time as he delayed the $600 bill. He was delaying the $600 bill, and Americans were getting kicked off of unemployment for a week, and you expect that person who delayed the $600 bill while playing golf to have the compassion to legitimately fight and put pressure on his own party, besides a tweet here and there, to get the $2,000 bill through. Give me a break. Trump is not your working class savior. Anyway, that's that vote. I'm happy it got through the House. I'm happy that Democrats have been shown clearly as a party to be in favor of this economic stimulus and these checks to working class Americans. I'm happy for it. Very few Democrats voted against that. Oh, by the way, Joe Biden also declared his support Somebody just put a tweet in chat. Thank you so much. Joe Biden has already declared his support for $2,000 checks to working class Americans. Just want to throw that out there. From the top of the ticket all the way down, besides a handful of exceptions that I can count on one hand, Democrats are in favor of it. I would have to make a Google sheet to count the amount of Republicans that are trying to obstruct it. It's on the record. Don't let anybody tell you that it was the Democrats trying to stop this. They were the ones who threw the ball into the end zone, and it was the Republicans that batted it down. Point, end of paragraph. No discussion, no debate. Just wanted to make that clear.